Welcome to Radio Free Endor. My name is Jonathan.
I'm Nikki.
And today, Star Wars artist, is Joe Hogan is joining us. How are you doing today?
Jonathan, I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me. It's great to meet both of you guys. It's good to be here. I'm excited.
Likewise. So whenever we have someone on, we ask them how they were first introduced to Star Wars.
Oh, I love it. That's a great question. So I am 28 now, and when I was 8 years old, oh wow, this is my 20-year anniversary this year. When I was 8, my best friend who lived across the street from me basically said to me, hey, you really need to check out these movies. They're really awesome. They're called Star Wars. I'm like, Star Wars? I've heard about that. That's the space thing. That sounds weird. Whatever. So he's like, all right, I'll level with you. I'll show you the best one first. And it was Empire Strikes Back, and he was absolutely correct. And I fell in love with it, and that was it. After I saw Empire, that's it. Done deal. That was hooked.
Cool.
That's the one that did it for me, too.
Yeah.
I totally get it. I was 6. So,
nice.
But I saw it in the theater.
Oh, impressive.
So I'm a little bit older than you guys.
Yeah. I'm of the prequel generation, so I'm kind of with Jason.
Okay. Oh, Jason Hunt.
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how old were you when the prequels came out? Because I feel like the people who have been introduced to Star Wars through the prequels were always younger. Like it's never like adults at the time that just had never seen Star Wars and then saw the prequels first. It was always kids, and their first movies were the prequel movies, and then they went back and watched the other ones.
I was almost 9 when Phantom Menace came out.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So. We do hear Jason mention Jar Jar a lot in reference to you.
Yeah. He does that. He's not the only one. Carl is just as guilty.
Yes.
The Wampa's Lair guys.
Yep, the great guys.
Oh yeah, they're the best, but I'll never tell them that to their face.
Right.
I'll only give them a hard time when we're speaking.
All right. So I guess first, I'd like to start off, like, how did you first get into Star Wars cartooning, or cartooning in general?
Long question. I will do my best to not ramble. If I do ramble, by all means, tell me to give you the Cliff Notes version and wrap it up. Do you want art in general or Star Wars art later? Because they were pretty much connected, but two are very different stories.
How about just what in relation to what you do right now?
Okay, so about 4 years ago, over the summer, I was contacted by theforce.net to do a table banner for them for Celebration 5. And I had posted in, just some fan art in their forums, and didn't really, I was still trying to break into art professionally at the time. I had already gone to art school and everything, and I knew I wanted to be an artist, but I wasn't working as an artist yet. So, they asked me to do that, and I said to myself, you know what? Even though it's kind of a big gig, it's unpaid, whatever, I'll do it, and it'll be fine. So I did it, they loved it, and I ended up kind of on a whim at the last minute going to Celebration just to, check it out and see it there. It was, my artwork all, blown up and hanging at their table. It's like, all right, let me go do this. This sounds pretty cool. And I had never been to a convention in my life, any type of convention at all. So Celebration 5 was my first, and I went there and met a whole bunch of people, made a whole ton of connections that would later turn into gigs, unbeknownst to me. But the biggest one was a now fellow Star Wars artist, Grant Gould. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him.
I am, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's been around. He's been doing stuff since, I think, Revenge of the Sith was his first professional Star Wars deal. He actually saw the banner and then saw it online about a month later and reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to do any work for Topps, because Topps had been hiring for a set at the time. So he got me in touch with their editor, and after that, everything kind of spiraled out of control. So Grant Gould got me my first official Star Wars gig, which is, I'm still to this day thanking him every time I talk to him for that. So,
can you tell us about your further about your experience with Topps?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've done I think 8 or 9 Star Wars sets for them now. So I work as a sketch card artist, which I don't know if all your listeners know what that is. So think of it as original artwork that gets randomly placed into the mass-produced cards. So you have your base cards, which, those be between like 100 to 200 cards per set, and every set typically has about 25 packs per box of cards, and then every single one of those boxes has one artist's sketch card, which is the original artwork that we draw on, randomly inserted into one of those packs. So they're pretty rare, and there's a pretty big collector base for sketch cards now. So ever since 2010, I've been doing those types of cards for Topps. And it's been really fun because every set is very different. You'll have, your standard 3.5 by 2.5 inch cards. I just did a Return of the Jedi wide vision one, so all the cards were wide vision, and you got to do like a lot of cool scenes. And that was like a whole Return of the Jedi set. And there was a kind of like a double-sided A New Hope set last year that was really fun to do, and like the cards flipped open. And right now I'm actually working on a set called Masterworks, and it seems like it's a really high-end premium set. The cards are really nice. The card stock is really thick and durable, and every set is just very, very different, and they're always themed differently. I mean, right now we're not allowed to do expanded universe stuff anymore, which is kind of a bummer because I was always really big on EU stuff. So some of my favorite characters come from the EU. But every set is different, and it's just really fun to just wake up and say, do I want to draw Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader today? I'll do both, and then they'll pay me money to do it, and everybody's happy. So it's pretty cool. It's really fun.
Yeah, I noticed on your DeviantArt page, and by the way, I do have some of your sketch cards.
Oh, you're kidding me.
I'm not. I went through my cards. And
that's awesome.
Stuff. I noticed you did a Mara Jade, kind of an 8-page.
Oh, yeah, that was... yeah.
So do you do, like, drawing EU stuff?
Oh, I love EU. I love doing EU.
How do you feel about us losing the expanded universe?
I am trying to look at it in a positive light because, I mean, I understand why people are upset about it, and, for us to shell out all this money to then be told, oh, none of it's canon. At the same time, like, if you still, and I know I'm saying like a lot because I do that when I ramble, if you enjoyed the subject matter, like if you connected with the comic or the video game or the novel, if you had a positive experience, if you enjoyed it, if you were stimulated by it, that didn't change. Like it's not a big deal that it's not canon. You can always keep it canon in your mind until it's proven otherwise or whatever. And the way I'm kind of looking at it, even though they're not telling us to look at it this way, is similar to the Marvel Universe. There are all these alternate realities and everything, and the stories branch off completely. So the origin of Marvel Venom in the original comics is not going to be the same as the Ultimate Universe, but they can still tell compelling stories and go all over the place. So that's kind of how I'm treating this, that the expanded universe, for me, is Universe A, and this new Disney version is Universe B. And they can both exist simultaneously but separately,
That's kind of how I'm taking it. I mean, there's some parts of the EU that I'm kind of glad to see gone.
Yeah.
But I think we all have our own issues with certain parts of the EU. I think because you have so many authors and comic writers, it becomes just a jumble sometimes. But yeah, there's definitely parts of it that I'm not sad to see go. But I think that approach to thinking about it as two separate entities is the way to go. It's kind of how I feel about Harry Potter books versus the movies.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Love them both, two separate things.
Mm-hmm.
But I was really getting into that Mara Jade comic. I thought your art was just spectacular.
Oh, thank you so
much.
much.
I was like, where can I find this? Because I need this in my collection.
Unfortunately, that all of the Star Wars comic work I've done has been unofficial to this point.
I noticed it for. I was like, is that your end game? Is that like what your ultimate goal is to be work on the Star Wars comics or any comics? Because I did notice you had some Marvel stuff.
Yeah, I would love to do that stuff officially, and it's funny because I've been kind of working towards doing that until I felt like I had come far enough to be taken seriously for a comics position. But I was kind of schmoozing a little bit with Dark Horse for a while, and now all that butt kissing I had been doing, I have to start over with Marvel. It's fine. I would, exactly. I would love to do stuff, and if Marvel will have me, I would love
I'm
to.
sure
But
they would. They have a really good history of hiring talent. So
well,
just show up
at me.
SDC, show up at SDCC and just put your book in front of
Oh yeah,
your portfolio in front of somebody. This is what I want to do.
Exactly. Yeah, that's always been my experience. I don't think I'm anything special, but I've always been very upfront about putting myself out there and saying, "Hey, I would love to work for you. If not, tell me what I need to do to get better, and I will do it, and then I will come back." And that has taken me, very far. Other than the countless amount of support I've gotten from other people, always, promoting me and all that stuff. So.
Well, that's what they like to hear, is that you want to learn more. Because I've talked to guys who work for Marvel and DC, and they say that's the best way to approach them if you want to work for them, is to say, this is what I've got, I'm going to get better, this is what I want to do, and they're always more receptive. So
absolutely.
You're definitely on the right track with that.
Thank you. Good to hear. Good to hear. I'm happy to hear.
So what are what are your favorite things to draw? What is your favorite character?
I think my favorite character is Obi-Wan. And it's funny because I know you guys listen to Wampa's Lair, so you guys maybe, I don't know, I'm sure your listeners have no idea who I am, but over there I'm notorious for being a prequel hater. And they treat me like the prequel boogeyman on Wampa's Lair. But it's not that I hate the prequels, it's just that they didn't really connect with me. But Ewan McGregor's performance sold me on the character of Obi-Wan. And after the prequels, I really, really started to like him. And then the Clone Wars came along, and now Obi-Wan is my absolute favorite character. Because he's the kind of guy that always does his best. In my opinion, he's the perfect Jedi, even though he messed everything up pretty badly in the galaxy. But I think he's the perfect Jedi because he's humble, he always does his best, and he's also engaging because he's a tragic character. And like I said, he did his best and he still messed up, and even afterwards he sacrifices everything to make sure that he can set things in motion to correct his past mistakes. Obi-Wan never kind of sweeps under the rug, well, whatever happened, who cares? Obi-Wan never gives up on, correcting the mistakes that he made with Anakin.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, go ahead. I'm doing a lot of talking.
Well, it kind of reminded me of the holocron message in Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
How about a new hope will arise.
Absolutely.
So in general, what do you think of the? What did you think of Rebels so far?
I really like it. So far, I really like it. I wasn't crazy about the episode that aired last night, which I don't know if it's technically if they're considering it the second or the third episode. The second 22-minute one, but the third after the hour-long special.
Right.
And I don't want to spoil it for anybody who didn't hear it, and I know you guys do reviews, so I won't I won't get into it. Okay. Wasn't totally nuts about that one, but overall, I really love it. I love the art direction. I think the cast is really great. My biggest gripe with it is that they kind of gave away everything from the first episode in one of the trailers. There were no surprises at all when.
Yeah, that's true.
So that was kind of a bummer, but I really it's fun. It's well done, and you can tell the Clone Wars team really have come a long way from the beginning of the Clone Wars and the Clone Wars movie and all that stuff, and jumping into this, it's fun. It's swashbuckling, original trilogy feeling adventures, and it's really cool. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I like those. I like that it's very similar in tone to the original trilogy.
Yeah,
because that's what I was raised on.
Yeah, me too.
And except for the first one, I didn't see till after the second. I didn't see 5 till after 6. But yeah, I think that it does have that definite swashbuckling thing that we had going on in the original trilogy, and there was when which was like a fairy tale or space opera or pirates in space.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that drew me to that world was those things. And I didn't get that a lot in Clone Wars, but I am enjoying it definitely in Rebels. And I haven't seen the latest episode yet. So.
Well, I hope I'm not lowering your expectations.
No, I'm the person you could tell who Kaiser Sose was and still enjoy the movie. So even though I had figured it out when I watched that movie before, but yeah, I'm kind of the person who I will forget the spoiler while I'm watching.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if somebody spoils me or not. But yeah.
Leading up to sorry.
No.
Okay. Leading up to Rebels, with the trailers and stuff, but a lot of, and one thing that people were pointing out was the Ralph McQuarrie influences. Everyone, maybe not so much, like a lot of the adult podcasters and stuff, they're all kind of talking about the Ralph McQuarrie art, including, Chopper, who's, the concept for R2.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. Very shocking, too, I think. When we first got I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I think it was like a TIE fighter or something. We got concept art for Rebels. And the internet kind of collectively lost its mind that that's not what a TIE fighter looks like. That's what the Ralph McQuarrie TIE fighter looks like. That's weird. We don't know how we feel about that. And, the internet was the internet. I think it's such a great idea. Like, what a way to pay homage to Star Wars than to go to the grand visionary himself. Like, without Ralph, Star Wars would not be Star Wars.
Exactly.
He designed everything from the original trilogy, and because of that, other artists were then able to take his designs and further design the galaxy. And the prequels were designed the way they were, and for the most part, the prequels were supposed to be the predecessors to that. So without Ralph, even the prequels wouldn't have looked like the prequels. And it's so crazy to think about. This one dude came up with so many looks for everything. Like, he really laid out the foundation work for everything in this ridiculously expansive lore. And now they're going back and really paying homage to all the stuff that they didn't get to use, and turning his stuff into the immediate predecessor designs for New Hope and Empire Strikes Back and all that stuff. Like, it's such a great idea. Like, I would have never in a million years have thought to do that. And I'm in awe. Like, I gotta say, like, even the moments in Rebels, especially in I don't mean especially, but like even in the episode that just aired that I wasn't crazy about. Every frame of that show looks like a painting, like a gorgeous masterpiece that I think Ralph would be very proud to have influenced.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I love seeing because I have quite a few of the prints that they've made of his sketches and his concept art. He's absolutely someone I consider to be the father of the Star Wars. Like, if in the Trinity of the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, George Lucas's father, the Holy Ghost is Ralph McQuarrie.
Mm-hmm.
His work is so beautiful. It's so thoughtful. I mean, he really thought about every stroke of that pen or his drawing pencil, because it's all very deliberate. And I love where he drew his influences from. Like, the original C-3PO was really influenced by Maria from
Metropolis.
Metropolis, thank you. I don't know. I won a trivia contest because I knew that, and I could not bring it up. And at Celebrations 6, they had a panel as a tribute to him. And when I wasn't crying, I was doing the trivia contest. His death impacted me more than a lot of people in my families. And I have several pieces that are based, statues that are based on his art. My favorite is Luke and Vader, lightsabers drawn. But I do have a print of Chewbacca that he did, and when I saw Jeb in Rebels, I kind of got a little teary.
Yeah,
because that was Chewbacca. That's what Chewbacca was originally going to look like, and even now I'm getting emotional thinking about him.
Is that the print that you have, the original?
I have one of. I don't have.
Or
it's a picture of the original Han and Chewie.
Okay.
and it was released in a lithograph set that I got years and years ago.
Oh, that's cool.
At a celebration, not even at a celebration. We're talking pre-celebrations because we're only on number 7 next year. It was just a regular convention, and they had it, and I had to have it. I spent everything I brought on that set. So, and yeah, it's framed, and to me, that seeing Jeb just really brought home that this was a tribute to Ralph and to what he brought to Star Wars, because you're right, it wouldn't look like it does without him. George really relied on that concept art because he trusted Ralph McQuarrie so much, and he was right. I mean, it was beautiful work, and it makes me happy to see that Mr. McQuarrie is getting the tribute he deserves. Because
absolutely,
we can only say so much wonderful things about this man who really was the beginning of Star Wars visually. And but I think showing it to these new generations, I know my nephews are 9 and 5, and they loved it. They loved Rebels, and they thought that Jeb was the coolest character. And I told them, no, that's what Chewie was supposed to look like that picture in my bedroom. They're like, oh, that's so cool. And I mean, I even have the Chewbacca action figure that was based on the McQuarrie drawings. So
I really love that. I guess it's more of a thing now than it was a few years ago. Because a few years ago they had released some of the toys, the McQuarrie Snowspeeder and Cloud Car and Speeder Bike. But I really like now that they're releasing, minibus on Ralph's designs and more figures. Like, it's more frequent. It's more of a set now.
Yeah. And I was at Celebration 4 in LA, and that's where they started selling the McQuarrie action figures.
Yeah.
And I got as many as I was allowed, they only had 2. But after that, it was like an obsession to find the rest of them. And you had, you were limited to how many you could buy there. But it's so amazing for me when I see online or in comic book shops, when I see McQuarrie's the bus, and it's like I have that statue that my best friend got me. And it literally, I kind of broke down in tears when I got it, because it was it was Ralph. And there's so much Star Wars art that I own and I love your stuff.
Thank you.
There's something about those drawings to me that they really make me really love Star Wars even more. I don't know if that's possible, since it's kind of my obsession in life since I was 6, but to me it's just it's the history, and I love having the prints, and I love that Rebels is acknowledging that this is where Star Wars came from, and we're going to pay tribute, and we're going to honor George and Mr. McQuarrie. And I think he'd be proud.
I hope so.
I think he'd definitely be proud. He was so proud of his work. And I remember reading interviews with him and just how much he loves Star Wars. And I like to go, and when I rewatch it for the 1,000th time, and I'm not even joking, that I can pick out what he designed.
Oh, absolutely. He has
it's so, I mean, every time I look at C-3PO, I have the C-3PO that looks like Maria from Metropolis. They did a figure, and I was like, that's one of my prized possessions. Because I love Metropolis. It's one of my top 20 movies of all time. I'm getting emotional. It's Ralph.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I can't look at Ralph's stuff without fanboying as a fan and as an artist. And I think what's really cool about it is just being stimulated in 2 ways at the same time, but just by looking at artwork is just, I don't really know how to describe it. I always want to go home and work looking at Ralph's stuff. So if I'm, I think Celebration 5, there was an exhibit on all his stuff where you could get specifically on his stuff only. And I spent hours, I think about 3 hours, just walking around and just taking everything in and studying how and why he did things. And, you're absolutely right when you say every single mark that he made, whether it be with his brush, with his pencil, whatever, it was meant to be there. He knew it was all supposed to be there. Everything was very deliberate and calculated, and and not even in like a robotic way, like just like you can feel the emotion and tone that he was going for, and everything is just so. Oh, I can't gush enough.
I'm so jealous you got to see that, because that's the one celebration I didn't get to go to was 5. Yeah, I've been to all the others, but but they didn't. Rancho Obi-Wan came to the last one, so we got to walk around and see all the toys I used to have.
I'm really excited. I'm actually going to go to Rancho Obi-Wan. I'm making like a 10-day trip with my friends for Celebration Anaheim. So we're going to do San Francisco and go up there to Rancho Obi-Wan because it's pretty close by, and do the Redwoods and see where Endor was filmed, and do Disney the 2 days and then Celebration. So I'm really excited.
I'll probably see you there then.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, I was like, I missed one, I'm not missing 2. Awesome. I could do that. But yeah, was he like, what was Ralph and his concept art, was he one of your influences as you were studying art, or did you have like a solid set influence, or was it more of a style that influenced you rather than one particular artist?
I was always really familiar with his work. I wouldn't say that he influenced me when I was growing up, more so now that I can appreciate what it was that he does and had done. Had done only right now, obviously. I always had a very graphic, cartoony style, so I tended to really study more artists that had that kind of style. So really the one that did it for me was Genndy Tartakovsky.
Oh, yeah.
And,
of course, he did the 2003 Clone Wars series, and watching that was the moment I said, okay, I want to do this professionally.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I could
100%. So
I could see his influence in your stuff, and that's what I was curious about.
Yeah, I'm shameless about my love for Genndy.
No, but you took the inspiration, you made it your own, and that's what I respect so much about it, is that it reminds me a little of Tartakovsky, but it doesn't look like you've just copied his style. It's just got hints of it, and that's because you do your own thing and with it, and that's what I like. And I loved that Clone Wars series more than even like the newer Clone Wars series, because of that style of animation. I have several animation cells from it, and
I'm so jealous.
And I also have a Boba Fett animation cell from the original Droids cartoon.
Wow!
Because he's my second favorite.
The not the holiday special, the Droids.
No, sadly I think all of those were destroyed. Probably personally by George.
Right, exactly. He had a bonfire one night.
Yeah, sadly, but I have a copy of the holiday special. Yeah. So yeah, so when I look at those and I watch the Clone Wars, we only had like two seasons, I guess, not even that of that show, and I really loved that style, and that's kind of, and I love the stories, and well, I do like Clone Wars, the newer Clone Wars. It just, to me, it wasn't the same.
Oh no, I mean,
and one was darker and more gritty and more samurai-ish, and I guess it makes sense for him to kind of go more samurai. But it was kind of reminded me more of the influences that George had for Star Wars, like the Kurosawa films and things like that. Like, I could totally see Hidden Fortress in Star Wars, and I could see that Japanese influence in Tartakovsky's, Clone Wars. And we got to meet Captain Rex for the first time, and I liked that.
Absolutely. Jonathan, are you familiar with the Genndy Clone Wars?
Oh, yeah. Huge fan of that. I watched it. I tried to watch it as it came out. I think I kind of got it, but, I own it on DVD. So, also, and I watched Samurai Jack before that, so
yes.
Stuff.
Love Samurai Jack. Not to go off topic. Oh, no, go ahead, Nikki.
No, I watched Samurai Jack after Clone Wars. So.
Okay. So not to go off topic, I don't know if you guys are aware, but the comic publisher IDW is actually doing an ongoing Samurai Jack series right now that Gendy had like a really strong hand in writing the story of where it's going. So it's kind of considered what season 5 would have been, and it's really, really good. So if you guys are Samurai Jack fans, you should check it out. It's really
I will definitely check that out. I'll definitely keep an eye on the comic list to see when it comes out, because I love that style. I thought Samurai Jack was a really great cartoon.
Absolutely, yeah. Very cinematic.
Yes, that's what I liked about it. It had a greater scope than most.
Yeah, I got to meet Gendy, and he doesn't really say a whole lot.
Yes, that's what I've heard.
But he's, I think I got there pretty late to his like little, because I think it was, I'm trying to figure out what convention this. I think this was C2E2. No, maybe it was San Diego. I don't know. But it was at the little Sony booth, and it was closing, but luckily he still gave me like his little poster that has like a print of his signature on the back. So
that's awesome.
So Hotel Transylvania. That's
right.
That's the last thing. So.
Oh, he did that?
Yeah.
I had no idea he did that.
Yep.
Of course, I only saw it once, and I was with my nephews, so shushing them all the time, I probably missed a lot.
Right. I had asked James Arnold Taylor, who's the voice actor for Obi-Wan Kenobi, actually on both Clone Wars. He's the same Obi-Wan. Yep. I had done some work for him and got to know him over the last couple of years, and always wanted to know more about Gendy because I always looked up to Gendy, obviously, and asked James what his impression of him was, and James described him as a silent genius. So, I mean, that's really seems to be the consensus. It's funny that you actually describe him as being very quiet.
Yeah, I've seen interviews with him, but it's an interesting process to watch because he is so kind of reserved and quiet.
He seems very nervous on camera.
He does. He really does. Unlike Filoni, who is like, here I am with my hat. Let's start talking.
Yeah. Filoni's just so casual and ready to go. He's awesome.
Yeah, I like that about him. One day I'd like to see him without the hat. Just because at Celebration 6, that hat was firmly in place.
Oh yeah, I'm actually pretty sure that his hat is actually his hair in the shape of a hat. I'm not actually convinced that the hat comes off.
Oh, I've seen the hat come off, but
really?
A toboggan goes on.
Oh. So he's very quick, so we can't see what's up there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe his brain is exposed. I don't know.
Right. He's like Dr. Giro from not Clone Wars, from Dragon Ball Z, if you guys are familiar with Dragon Ball Z. Clone Wars. Not even close.
Some kind of mad experiment.
Right.
So when did you start? When did you start noticing pieces of the artistic aspect of Star Wars? When did you start kind of looking at different pieces and how it relates to other parts of the film?
Wait, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, no, I
thought I did until the last part of it. It just threw me off a little bit.
Okay, well, just the beginning part then.
I'm sorry. Now I'm
sorry. My fault.
I brain farted myself in worrying that I understood it. So when did I start looking at Star Wars from a more artistic standpoint than just a film?
Yes.
Is that okay? Honestly, probably after seeing the Gendy Clone Wars, because I was still trying to really find my voice and I wasn't really looking at movies as art yet. I was very literal in the sense that, art is art and movies are movies. They're two separate things, of course. And then after Clone Wars, I ended up going to art school, and then in art school I kind of really started to observe more and pick things apart by looking at it. And an exercise that I've been doing since art school is when I see something that's interesting to me, how would I draw that? And I would think about, what the pieces, how I would put pieces together to replicate this, either in my own way or, recreate it in the way that it already is. And that always got me thinking about, how are these things already connected in the first place, that I would then have to figure out how to assemble them back together on my own. So that's when I started looking at movies, and especially Star Wars, because Star Wars has always been, a very big part of my life and has always been something that I knew from very early on that I wanted to be I wanted involved in my life, and didn't really think until later that I'd actually be able to involve it in my career. And I was always very happy when that started to be in the realm of possibility. But yeah, I think Empire really kind of did it for me again. So as a fan, Empire stimulated me, and then as an artist, when it really clicked for me the first time I realized it, I don't know how familiar you guys are with artistic terms, but complementary colors. Mm-hmm. So are both of you guys aware of what those are?
Yeah.
Okay, so just for anybody who's might be listening and might not be familiar with it, the color wheel, which is basically the progression of colors in a circle, how, one color goes to the next one, and there's warm colors, there's cool colors, and all this stuff. It's a whole big process that I won't get into right now, because I'm sure I won't articulate it correctly, and it will sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. But complementary colors are basically colors that are opposite each other on this color wheel diagram. And in The Empire Strikes Back, in the carbon freezing chamber, there are orange lights and there are blue hues, and they're placed in such a way that it's very pleasing to the eye. And that was the first time in a movie outside of like painted artwork or cartoons that I noticed complementary colors and said, that's why that room looks so awesome. That's why I love that room. They're complementary colors. That's so cool. So like ever since that point, Empire kind of jettisoned me into picking apart movies that way. Like anytime I see anything that's visually interesting to me, I'll go to my art training and say, well, why is this interesting? Why does this work as an image and that kind of thing? And yes, it was Empire that got me started on that. So I don't know if that's exactly what you asked me, but that was the long-winded answer that I have. Yeah. All right, perfect. We'll run with it.
Empire inspired a lot of us.
Oh, forget it.
Yeah, and actually, I haven't actually finished listening to it, but you guested on the Wampus Lair a while back for an Empire episode.
Oh yeah, where Carl and I just gush like children.
Yep.
About how much we love Empire.
Yeah.
Well, I think Empire is, sense of artistically, I think its cinematography was far better than A New Hope, and I don't remember who the DP was on that, but the color, I agree, the colors worked, even though you wouldn't think they would. And I did love how dark it was, but how you could still see what the colors were.
Absolutely.
And even in the special editions when we got to see outside in Cloud City, because in the original, when they're running through the halls, you don't see outside.
Right, there are no windows, right?
There's no windows, and in the special edition, we got windows. And I love the colors that they used for the sky because it made it seem alien. We don't have the sky, those shades of pink and orange and purple. And I never really noticed that carbon freeze scene, and now every time I watch it, I'm going to remember that orange, because I can remember it very vividly, and I can see it in my head. Oh yes, there's the blue and the orange, but I never thought about it. I never took that kind of approach to it. And I think Empire has definitely has some of my most, my favorite visuals in it, and my favorite colors.
Absolutely. Jonathan, I don't know if I caught, and if you've you've discussed it before, feel free to tell me to shut up and mind my own business. It sounds like Nikki's favorite is Empire Strikes Back. What is your favorite Star Wars movie? And I don't mean to go off topic or anything, but I'm curious.
No, that's fine.
For me, it's really difficult. For me, I want to lean Empire just for the Dagobah scenes. Mm-hmm. Because you get all this, you learn about the Force. You learn your first. Obi-Wan, of course, explains it briefly in original, in New Hope, but in here, he really delves deep into the forest, and we're in a forest, the swamp, and looking around. I think it's just so, it's beautiful sets, where it's just like, it's almost, it's like otherworldly, but also kind of like our world, and I think, so it's really hard to pick, but since Yoda is my favorite character, and you see him like in his, his ultimate wisdom and like his humor, where he hasn't seen anyone for over a decade, so But I also kind of lean on Jedi because, of the battle over Endor. So, it's really hard. But I love Revenge of the Sith. Also, Attack of the Clones I used to actually like more than Revenge of the Sith. So, that's the long answer. It's impossible.
I'm honestly surprised to hear that you said Empire and Jedi first, because growing up really with the prequels being your first exposure, I feel like everyone I've spoken to that has had that experience always says one of the prequels is one of their favorites.
Actually, I saw the special editions first.
Oh, okay.
So actually, I got like the gold box. So I was I was watching the original trilogy before I saw the prequels.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
that's why you're the exception, then.
Yeah, I suppose
it all makes sense.
Yeah, I love the prequels, and I would probably say that like Revenge is up there in probably my number 2, just because it reminds me so much of Empire in a lot of ways. It was the dark one. It was, throwing your protagonist into the darkest situation that you could pretty much come up with. But I think Empire is probably the best of all of the films, and because it was my first. And you never forget your first.
This is true.
That it has more of an impact. That I still feel the way when I watch Empire, I still get that feelings of a 6-year-old little girl watching a movie in a big theater.
Mm-hmm.
It's tangible how much I love that film. So I think we all have our favorites for varying reasons, and that's where I had my first crush on Han Solo. And when I was 6, yes, I had a crush on Han Solo. I wanted to marry him, and then I wanted to be his daughter. Once I decided he belonged with Leia.
Okay.
And I realized that they belonged together, and I decided, well, maybe I'll be their kid instead. And Boba Fett, he's been such a huge character in my life. So the introduction of Boba Fett was pretty, and it pretty much had a huge impact on me.
So
not as much as Han, though.
Well, I mean, Han Solo is Han Solo.
I know. I've always gone for the bad boys ever since I was 6.
So now let me ask you.
Okay.
If in episode 7, if they get rid of the whole Han and Leia actually got married thing, and if Han Solo's like typical Han Solo and kind of went off and did his smuggler thing, are you going to be okay with that?
Yes.
Really?
I would be okay with that. One, because I know that Carrie Fisher is listed as Leia Solo on the casting.
Okay, so that won't happen, but all right.
But if it does happen, and I know Harrison has his feelings about what he wants to happen, he wants, like he did in Jedi, he wants Han to die. There are rumors that, and I'm pretty sure they're just rumors, that he only agreed to do it if they killed off Han Solo. As long as I get Han in the film, I'm really okay. I mean, if they go a different way than the stories that we know from the EU, and they're not married, they don't have the kids, that's fine with me. I really want him in the film. It's very important to me that Han is Han no matter what. If he's married, if he's not, if he still has the bite, if he still has the wit that Han had, the dry humor, and I just want a true Han Solo. And I think Harrison is definitely able to go back to that character and bring him back to us. But I think, we're talking 30 years, things are going to change in Han. Things are going to change in Leia and Luke and Chewie and the droids even. So if they don't have Han and Leia together, I question that choice, but I understand. But Han is kind of a solo figure, no pun intended. And aside from Chewbacca, he was really on his own. But I really felt like he found where he belonged when he teamed up with Luke and Leia and the gang. And I don't think they're out, in the Mystery Millennium Falcon solving crimes around, But I think they would be missing a chance to elevate Han to a more major character. I mean, he's always been my number one, but I do acknowledge in Jedi he wasn't used the way I hoped he'd be used. He wasn't in it. He wasn't the same Han, even though I loved it. Looking at it as an adult and hearing his complaints about it, I can see what he was talking about. He felt Han had done everything he was supposed to do, that there was no point in him. I don't agree with that, but I can see where he gets that idea. But if I get my Han Solo, I don't care who he's married to. And Harrison Ford is one of my favorite actors, not just because of Han, but because of his other films. I just want that. I want a return to the universe that totally captured me when I was 6 years old. And I got a little of that in the prequels. I mean, I got quite a bit of it in the prequels. But to me, as a child of the originals, to me, Star Wars always involved Han and Leia and Chewbacca. So my favorite parts of the prequels were seeing Chewbacca again and seeing Yoda and Obi-Wan and finding out more about the history behind it and the things and the droids. I mean, meeting R2-D2 in episode 1 was probably the part where I started crying because I knew the droids were in it, but I never knew where they came from. And to me, it was the idea that this is how we get introduced to R2-D2 and C-3PO and Yoda, but R2 being my number 3 favorite character, that one got me. That made me cry because I was so happy to see him, and I knew Kenny Baker was there, and like with C-3PO, I knew Anthony Daniels was there because I'd seen so much of the behind-the-scenes photographs. But if I get a film that takes me back to that place I was in 1980, then I'm happy.
Absolutely. And I don't think you're alone. I think...
No, I mean, I love the prequels. I will defend them to the death. I really will. I can criticize them as much as the person who hates them the most, but I can also defend them. And I can criticize the originals, too. They're not perfect films.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing that, I'm starting to not really appreciate. And this isn't in regards to the Wampa's Lair guys at all, because they're very good about it, and, we're always just messing around. I notice people are at a point where if you say anything negative about the prequels, they're basically writing it off as prequel bashing.
Right.
And I think right now it's fair to be critical about both those and the original trilogy, because, they're making a new one, and hopefully they're learning from the mistakes of, all 6 movies. Like you said, none of them are perfect. Personally, I feel like there's a lot wrong with the prequels, but I don't think they're bad films. Right. But I think there's plenty of things that they could have done differently.
I agree.
Yeah, so it's, it's kind of a weird thing. Like, I get that people are sick, like, oh, the prequels aren't good. What a new thought to have, an original idea. But,
yeah, I've often asked people, because they would, and then Jonathan knows this because I've said it before, when people, like when they came out, people would come to me and complain. Like I was a conduit to George.
You are responsible for this.
How do you like that film? It's A, B, C, D. I was like, and I always say, what were you expecting? What were you promised? We were promised a Star Wars film. Mm-hmm. Star Wars films, great action scenes, lightsabers, spaceships, great space battles, bad dialogue.
Right.
And that's what we got. Mm-hmm. Yes, there are parts of the stories I would have done something different with. I'm not George Lucas, nor do I want to be George Lucas. I mean, I would not want to be God. I mean, think of all the pressure that he is under. I mean, but I can defend them because I could say, I got what I wanted. Mm-hmm. I was not promised all this extra stuff that you're thinking should have been there. And I think with the new sequels, with the third trilogy, I think they are going to learn from the mistakes of the prequels and the mistakes of the OT, because one, J.J. Abrams is that kind of director where he can reflect. 2, George isn't that involved, and he's the first person to say he doesn't direct actors well. Mm-hmm. And they've learned not to let George direct. And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and I love. As much as I love George, yeah, he's not the greatest director. I mean, I love American Graffiti. I love THX 1138. But I think the thing that makes Empire and Jedi so special
I know where you're going.
He gave other directors a voice, and Irvin Kershner had such a powerful voice in Empire. And Richard Marquand in Jedi, he was, he was basically George, doing whatever George wanted, but he was a different voice. And I think, and having Lawrence Kasdan come in on both of those and work on the dialogue, and now he's working on the script for 7. I think they've gone back to what worked so well, which was mixing up directors, having someone come in and tweak the dialogue, and make a more cohesive story. And that's what JJ is going to do, because he has all those techniques at his hand, at his hand. Mm-hmm. So I'm not as concerned as I was during the prequel thing. I have so many friends who bash the prequels, and it's like, okay, if I understand you don't like them, I do. Please don't try to change my mind. I will not try to change your mind, because it's your personal opinion, and I'm not into changing people's opinion.
Exactly.
But please don't try to change mine.
Exactly. As long everybody is allowed to like what they want to like.
Right.
It's not a big deal if you don't like the same things that I like. And
right.
There
are people who don't like the OT, and I'm like, okay, well, I pity you.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's your choice.
It's okay that's your
opinion.
Wrong.
You have the right to give your opinion, even though I disagree with you, because the OT is fantastic. But I saw, I'm hoping to see some of that feeling we got from the OT in this new sequel. So I think we will, because I have a lot of confidence in JJ and Lawrence Kasdan, and I think Disney is doing the right thing with this.
I'm holding my breath for JJ, because
well, we won't get flares. That's a good thing.
I have confidence in him. I know he'll do a good job, and I know he knows what's on the line. Mm-hmm. But man, if people don't like this movie,
they're gonna roast him.
He's gonna feel it.
They're already calling him Jar Jar Abrams.
Yeah, exactly. So
I look at it this way: J.J. Abrams made me like Star Trek. And that's not very popular among some of my friends who hate the reboot, but I really love them.
That's the reason I checked out more Trek, because I saw the 2009, and then I watched some Trek, and I saw the 2014, and then or 13, then I so I've been watching Trek since I watched his movies. I've been I've seen all the movies now, been watching the TV. I think it will be one interesting thing to mention is that I think with the Phantom Menace, I think the expectations was so high that I think this time around, I don't think the expectations will be as high, which is why also I don't think I'm not sure if it'll hit $1 billion, but I think if this one is good, I think the next one will.
I think it will. I think people will see it repeatedly, like I did the prequels, and I have. If J.J. Abrams can make me dig Star Trek, then he's a miracle worker, because I grew up watching that show and Next Gen, and I've seen all the films, and my dislike of Trek is based on an educated opinion. I was like, it's not my thing. It's just not my thing. But I really like the JJ ones, and I have friends who say, how can you like those? Originals? I said, first you complain that I don't like Star Trek. Now I like Star Trek.
Yeah.
This particular part of, and now you're trying to convince me that I'm wrong. It's like, make up your minds, people. Just because I prefer this look, and I didn't count lens flares, and I really didn't care. I have friends who just will not stop talking about those, and I'm like, I didn't even notice them half the time. And he already said he's not putting them in Star Wars, so be happy about that. That's a Trek thing. We want to keep it separate from the Wars.
I think one thing interesting is that, unlike the Trek, which was a reboot, this is a continuation.
Yeah. And I think JJ has, he's had some successes and he's had some failures, but I think he has a really unique voice, and he's a fan. And it's like with Joss Whedon really wanted to do it, and I would totally trust Joss Whedon as well, because I know they have a love for these characters and this property, and that's why I'm not worried like a lot of people are worried, because in the end if I'm getting a Star Wars film, that's all I care about. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be the greatest film ever made. It just has to be a Star Wars movie. And give me those things that I expect from a Star Wars film. And, you know, if it succeeds and is even better, then great, fantastic. More people will see it, and more people will put aside their prejudice against, you know, the prequels and say, oh, well, now we can start over.
I think what's funny, and I don't mean to bite the hand that feeds me here. I agree. I think George is a genius, and I think directing is not exactly his greatest strength. I actually have more faith in this movie because George is a consultant.
Yeah.
And does not have all the creative control.
I doubt he's got much at all.
Well, yeah, at this point.
He's kind of retired. Like, he's kind of happy in retirement.
Absolutely. And I gotta say, like, I also don't blame the guy for not wanting to do the movies himself. Because I remember a while ago, when people were asking, hey, are you going to ever do 7, 8, and 9? He would say, so people can hate me for doing another, 3 movies and wasting 10 years of my life for everyone to be mad at me? No, I'm not going to do them.
Especially since he never really planned a 7, 8, and 9. And that was, he said in an interview, like, when the special editions were out, he's like, I got everything in the first 3 that I wanted to do. Yeah. So there wasn't going to be a 7, 8, and 9 until Disney took it over. And I'm sure after the prequels he thought about doing 7, 8, and 9 just to kind of finish it off. But, the man is a god to me.
Right.
So, and he's the first person to say he's not a great director. Mm-hmm. I think he was a great director for THX. He was a great director for American Graffiti, because that is one of my top 10 films. And he was a great director for the first Star Wars film. It worked.
And I think another thing mentioned is that between the original Star Wars and, that was the last movie he directed, and then he directed the prequels.
Right.
So you have all that space in between, no directing experience at all.
He was writing, he wrote Indiana Jones, and he wrote, he produced, sadly, Howard the Duck. I think he was so focused on building the technology of filmmaking up to what he saw in his mind when he originally wrote Star Wars, that when he took over directing, I think it was almost like The Phantom Menace was almost like him playing with new toys.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
Can I do that? I could do this now. I have the technology now. I have because he said there's so much he couldn't do because the technology wasn't there. Mm-hmm. in the original trilogy, and now the technology has exceeded what he wanted, and now he wanted to use what we had today, like using digital, because Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith are digital films. I mean, I don't know if I remember correctly, but I think Phantom Menace was the last one he did that was straight film and not on digital, and I think a lot of it was the kid with the new toys, and the technology was beautiful. It was gorgeous. All the new techniques he used were fantastic, and I cannot wait to see how things have even progressed further. I mean, with the work of Weta and other special effects houses. So I think he has a lot to be proud of.
I also like, though, that for 7, even though I'm sure there'll be a ton of special effects, I really like that they're going practical.
Oh, yeah, totally. When I saw the Falcon, I was just so excited. Yeah. I mean, it's the best ship in the entire Star Wars universe. Mm-hmm. And I'm not biased at all about that.
No.
But I love seeing the X-Wing. I love everything we've seen coming out of what JJ is reluctantly giving us. Yeah. And the fact that he is using more practical sets makes me so happy, because sometimes things look really fake. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, I love the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit films, I mean, like, with a passion, but there are parts of those that I can tell it's digital effects. And I don't want to. I want to get lost in the world. And with Star Wars, I get lost in that world. So.
Part of what made the original Star Wars so believable, and maybe believable is not the word, but...
more realistic. And
Yeah, it was like everything had rust. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, okay, the Death Star interiors didn't, but, like, the Millennium Falcon looked like it was falling apart. And you could see the rust and the wear and tear and the dirt.
Oh,
and
totally.
Tatooine had all of this, like, the ripped apart awnings and all this stuff, and like everything looked weathered and like it had been there for a long time, and just made it like it was relatable enough to our world that we could kind of suspend our belief. And like
Right.
the jump from our world to this world, as fantastic as it was still relatable enough. And the prequels just felt very like sterile in comparison.
I agree. Some parts of it were not as gritty as like you said, being lost on Tatooine. You felt like you were in the desert because they really filmed it in Tatooine, Tunisia, in the desert. And it allowed you to lose yourself in it because you could imagine that you were somewhere where something was rusty. You knew it was there. Mm-hmm. And I do think that, especially the scene that pops out to me the most is in Phantom Menace with the battle between the battle droids and the Gungans.
Yeah. Oh.
There are parts of it that just seem like they're a cartoon.
Yeah.
And while I think that it's so cool how they load the droids up and how they come out of those big carriers, but I don't know if it was just the cinematography or whatever they were using. It just looked like animation. And I know part of it is animation, but it shouldn't look like animation. Like there were no clouds. It was green and blue. And then the battle droids. And it just didn't look realistic. I couldn't lose myself. I didn't feel like I was there. Like I feel like I'm on Tatooine. I felt like I was on Hoth. I felt like I was in the Millennium Falcon. Because it was hyper-realistic. And as opposed to that's like the only real example I can think of from the prequels is that scene of Phantom Menace.
No, that's perfect.
It didn't look real.
It's funny you say that because that's my go-to scene for the same complaint.
Yeah.
Is that scene.
It's just, I don't know.
For me, it's only been in the last, few years, including being in film school, that I kind of start picking these little things out of, aside from plot, but also, when I was a kid, I never really noticed, CGI and, it's horrible CGI, yada yada, all that. But, as because as a kid, I was captivated even by, Jar Jar and stuff, all this other kind of, as a 8, 9-ish year old, I was captured by this stuff. But, I can definitely see how now, someone might be kind of taken out of it. In a way. But I think for me, and probably a lot of other kids my age, we just didn't really think about it.
Oh, I could totally see that. And I know Phantom Menace was intended by George to be more for kids, to kind of bring them into the world, into this universe. I think as I was an adult when I saw the prequels and had studied film, and had spent my life watching whatever films I can get a hold of, I started noticing cinematography when I was in lighting and set design and all that costume design at a very young age. So when I saw the prequels, I saw them first. I watched it straight first with the eye of a Star Wars fan. Mm-hmm. So I watched it at midnight show, and then the next day I went back and I saw it again, and then I could be a little more critical of it. But I think I noticed those things because I was an adult at the time. Mm-hmm. I was already used to technology, and I knew a lot about the prequels even before they came out. And so I think depending on the age you are when you see them, you look at things a little differently.
Absolutely. Plus, not to mention, now the picture quality is so sharp. On the Blu-rays, you can spot everything. And you couldn't do that on the VHSs. Or even the DVDs hid a lot of, the imperfections. But now, if it's imperfect, you're going to see it in those
Exactly. And even in film now, because it's so much as digital, it is like kind of watching a Blu-ray on a very big screen. And you can see all the flaws. You can, so they have to be so much more careful nowadays when they're making films. I think, I have trust that these new ones are going to be pretty amazing to look at.
Yeah, and I think as far as, seeing these imperfections, is that I think it kind of goes, something similar to that is that, there is this, wanting to have the originals. Mm-hmm. But I think the problem is with that is that, the great thing about the special editions is that they're more made for these these better formats, and I think you'd see even more age in the older ones. I think it's probably just a nostalgia thing to see the originals on Blu-ray.
I think part of it is, but another part is there's those of us who saw them when they came out. That was the experience we had, and that's the experience we want to relive.
That's true.
Is seeing them that way, and I do have those. I do have the originals, untouched, on special edition. I'm on Laserdisc, VHS. Still, because I will never get rid of them. And there is something that I think the reason a lot of people complained about the special editions was because it was like, well, that's not the Star Wars that we knew. I mean, and there's some things I'm glad he didn't fix, like the lightsaber or the stormtrooper bumping his head on the door, or the fact that Han in the carbon freeze chamber in Empire, one shot he's wearing a vest, the black vest, and from a wider shot he doesn't have it on. I liked that because that to me was what I knew as Star Wars. And I love this, but I love the special editions and I love the prequels. But the originals will always have that tight grip on my heart.
Yeah, I think it's a possibility that we'll eventually get them on Blu-ray.
We kind of do, but I mean, we had them on. It was a while before he'd released them even on DVD, so it took a lot of complaining for us to get the originals on DVD. So Blu-ray, hopefully, please.
I mean, I think maybe maybe they'll come out with like a single disc or something. I mean, release them separately instead of together. I think.
Yeah, I think they will.
That would probably be the next opportunity to release the originals completely unedited and stuff.
I want all the flaws.
Yes. I think there is some, of course, little complication as far as, the original Star Wars being wrapped up with 20th Century.
Right.
Some of those rights kind of is a little complicated. Hopefully, something.
Yeah, but they're going up against Disney, and Disney could buy 20th Century Fox.
Have you guys already discussed the weirdness of when we go to see Episode 7? There's not going to be a 20th Century Fox fanfare before. A long time ago.
I'm kind of blocking that.
Oh, I don't like it. I don't like this idea.
Because, I mean, no matter what movie I see that Fox has put out, whenever I hear that fanfare, I think Star Wars.
Absolutely.
That's the first thing, and it annoys my best friend no end because I hear it and I go, Star Wars? Mm-hmm. Like I'm a puppy seeing a squirrel. Mm-hmm. And so I've learned to kind of keep it inside, but it's like it's such a Pavlovian response that I'm like, was it Star Wars? Really? Where? Star Wars. It's the goldfish syndrome. I mean, it's just like, I'm trying to block it out and not worry about it. But yeah, it's something I've thought of.
Yeah, I always kind of thought that maybe they would leave it in, kind of like how they left the Paramount logo in the Marvel films, but maybe it just must be a different situation.
It's all about rights, and 20th Century Fox for the prequels had nothing to do with it other than distributing it. So I think George did that because he could have distributed them on his own. He kept 20th Century Fox because of tradition, and that's something he said in an interview. So I think it will be very strange for us not to see it, and kind of weird to see the Disney intro.
I doubt we'll see it. I don't.
As long as I get A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away in the Lucasfilm logo, I'm okay.
I don't think we'll see the Disney logo. Because
at the beginning, I think we will. I think we will. It won't be the whole lead up to the castle.
Yeah. Well, because the Marvel movies, they don't show the castle.
Well, because they're distributed under Marvel Studios, and Disney just owns Marvel, so they don't distribute the films under Disney. It just all depends on what their distribution deal is. I learned that. I had to learn that. I was just like, wait a minute, this isn't right. Like, this is distribution and blah, blah, blah. And so I don't know what their deal is. They might not do it. They might just do it under Lucasfilm because Lucasfilm is a branch now of Disney. So I don't know what... It's like Miramax used to be a part of Disney, and you didn't see the Disney logo or Touchstone, which I don't even think exists anymore. So it just all depends on what the deal is, and if they might just have Lucasfilm release it, distribute it through them instead of distributing it under the Disney umbrella.
Yeah. How did we get here? I don't remember.
Probably my fault. I think I veered us off a
The
while
20th
ago.
century, the 20th century Fox question. It's okay. We enjoy tangents.
Awesome. I'm great at those.
I think there is. What do you know about the? Have you kept track of Joe? Have you kept track at all of the art museum that George and Melody are opening in Chicago?
No, I don't know anything about this, honestly.
Oh. Yeah, they a couple cities like bid for the Lucas film museum with the George Lucas Museum. So it's going to be like technology and the science behind Star Wars and kind of like everything that he's been a part of.
I'm putting it in the chat.
Okay, and Chicago won the bid between San Francisco. I think it was San Francisco.
Yeah, San Francisco tried to, but
they have Lucasfilm. I mean, they don't need.
Yeah, really, don't be greedy.
They have ILM. I am kind of upset it's all the way in Chicago, but it hasn't been built yet. They just won the bid, and George and Melody kind of live there part-time or half the time because she works there. So it's kind of like his new home. But part of me wants it to be at Skywalker so I can finally get into the gates.
Well, I guess I am going to Chicago soon. When is this going to be? When is this going down?
I think we have a few years.
All right, I'll start saving my pennies then.
Yeah, I will be there as soon as I can.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a pretty big deal. Of not just Star Wars art, but other kinds of art as well.
Right, because he's been involved in so many, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be a Kurosawa collection there, because that was his major influence on at least on Star Wars.
I'm sure there'll be some Steven Spielberg stuff.
Well, yeah, because you've got Indiana Jones, and so everything George has touched or influenced will be a part of this museum.
That's fantastic. What a great idea.
I know, isn't it?
Wow.
Yeah, so it does look like a pretty big deal here. So I'm definitely we've been kind of watching it for the last few months or so. Watching as this thing has kind of been figured out. So
I'm kind of surprised that I haven't heard about it since then, because I'm usually pretty good about being up to speed on my Star Wars related news. Yeah, this is totally new to me.
Yeah, I think something else big that's kind of come out is that we have Wicked. I mean,
yes, yes,
Warwick Davis. I'm so happy.
You guys see the video?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, that was very, very cool. Him wearing the beard.
It's so perfect. I mean, we have Anthony and Kenny and Peter, and we have to have Warwick. He's such a huge part of my Star Wars experience, even though he's only in Return, but he's also in the prequels. So it's just like it just makes sense.
I wonder who he's going. I mean, I don't think he's going to be Wicket. I really doubt it.
I really don't. He was only like 12 when he played Wicket, so he was even smaller.
So I wonder what they're going to do with him.
I think that's a big question.
I mean, I wonder what they're going to do with everybody, but
yeah, I think the big question is who is he playing? Because that's kind of how I am about Andy Serkis being in. It's like knowing he's doing a mocap, or performance capture for character. I'm like, okay, who's it going to be? And then with Warwick, it's like, oh, who's he going to be? He's got to be someone cool. I want to see him in it a lot. I mean, not too much, but I want him to be noticed. I want people to say, oh my God, it's Warwick.
Maybe Kenny Baker's backup.
No, Kenny's a little shorter. I don't think I've met Warwick. I don't think he'll fit. I've met Kenny too, but they're very small. But I'm very excited about Warwick. I literally jumped up and down.
Yeah. So apparently they also opened up, Industrial Light and Magic opened up a London studio. So that's
wow.
And it was actually at this meeting that because ILM does everything. Even if a studio uses like their own or another own, a lot of times they'll also use ILM just for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Harry Potter used ILM for some things. It's like you can piecemeal out some of your special effects to different effects houses. Like you say, okay, this scene was done by ILM, this scene was done by Weta, this scene was done by Sony, this scene was done by blah, blah, blah. So I think that it's going to be pretty amazing to have one in London, because that just to me shows we're going to be back. we'll be back in London so for the next ones.
Mm-hmm. It's so crazy to think that. I mean, yes, episode 7 is a little over a year away.
Yeah.
But like everybody's speculating about episode 7 right now, but there's still going to be more Star Wars after that. There's going to be at least two more episodic movies plus spin-offs. It's like I feel like it's 1998 again, where we know a whole lot is coming, but we have no idea about anything, and the speculation is just, I think, is the most fun part. It's the best part about new Star Wars on the way.
It's so fun because we don't know what to expect, but the possibilities.
Exactly. Yeah.
It just makes it so much more fun.
Yeah, and at that meeting, she also, Kathleen Kennedy also announced that episode 7 is completing in 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And it just seems like shooting just started yesterday, to be honest.
I know. Now I feel like it's really happening. I mean, like, we have an end date already. I mean, I'm still mad that it's not going to be in May, but wow. That just really blew my mind right there.
So
3 weeks.
When do you guys think we'll get a teaser?
I'm thinking Celebration 7 in April.
I think
they'll save it.
I mean, I think maybe at the 1 year mark we might get like something. Like we might get like I don't know, like Luke Skywalker, I don't know, walking at him.
Right, we'll get something like that, but also I just thought Avengers 2, Age of Ultron. I could see them putting a trailer for episode 7 before that.
Yeah.
So I could see them doing that, or Celebration.
Yeah. I mean,
I think we'll definitely have footage.
Celebration.
We'll definitely have something.
Yeah, they're pretty close. They're pretty close together. So.
Right, they're only a couple weeks apart, actually. So I think we might get like the official release. We might get it at Celebration, but they won't show it to the general public maybe until Age of Ultron.
Yeah, that's a very good possibility.
That makes sense.
So, but because they like to give us special things at Celebration, like Celebration for the 6-movie marathon, we get different versions of each film. So there was something a little different about each one from the theatrical releases and the DVDs. So they like to reward the hardcore fans.
Yeah, I remember 6. They actually aired the first episode of Clone Wars for the new season. I think it was like 2 months earlier or something like that. Yeah. So it was the 2 episodes that were the finale from the season that had just ended, and then the premiere episode all in one screening.
Yeah.
So yeah, they love doing, like you said, they love rewarding us for being there and waiting in line for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, because we're the ones who've kept it alive. I mean,
oh, absolutely.
Look how many movies don't have rabid fan bases just die. Nobody, I mean, but you really hit something special when you get this kind of level of fandom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there was also something that came a couple of days ago is that apparently Star Wars was actually going to be shot nearby, and actually going to be shot in Jordan, but by the last minute, it was changed to Abu Dhabi for one reason or another.
Well, Jordan's also in that politically unstable zone right now.
Yes.
Even though they're fine, like Jordan is a very stable country, I don't think they probably wanted to deal with the possibilities of terrorist threats, because Jordan and Syria are very close to each other, border each other. So I think that's probably why there's just way too much tension and way too much uncertainty. And Abu Dhabi, it's beautiful. It can mimic different locations, kind of like not as well as like Vancouver can, like because the X-Files was filmed in Vancouver, but pretty much they have buildings and locations that look like anywhere. even New York.
I mean, like Tunisia. It was in Tunisia, then they moved that out because of all the chaos that's going in Tunisia.
Right. I think Abu Dhabi will be. Having seen pictures of it, I think it'll work really well.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of glad they're not going to Jordan just because of the political unrest over in that area of the world. So somebody was smart and moved it.
Yeah, because apparently they filmed like Lawrence of Arabia. Apparently recently Prometheus, Zero Dark 30. Several different big budget movies.
And they like American money, and they court film productions. They court them to go over there. They give them really good deals on, how much money they pay, how much money the production companies have to pay to use these locations. And I think they really want to build up their film industry. So I think it's a great idea. I think it'll help both the film and the country. And I'm glad they're not going to be somewhere where they could get taken hostage or bombed or kidnapped and all of that fun stuff that's going on in the Middle East right now.
Yeah. Another thing, more lighter thing, is that Harrison Ford, he's ditched the crutches.
Yay!
On his feet.
Go Harrison!
We all knew he would bounce back.
Yeah, because when I saw his Ice Bucket Challenge, he didn't even have a cast on. So I was like, oh, he's fine. For a 70-year-old man, he's got the moves.
He's Han Solo and Indiana Jones.
Yes, he is. He really is, and he will always be. But and today is Carrie Fisher's birthday.
Happy birthday to her!
Happy birthday, Carrie Fisher, if you're listening.
Yeah,
you're not, but happy birthday anyway.
Crazy,
because you're in London and working on Star Wars, and that's where she needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think I heard Anthony Daniels. I think he wrapped his stuff up. So just recently. So and apparently he he didn't really have to be in the suit, but he's like I gotta be in the suit. I have to. He's been like the state. He's always been in Star Wars, and he's always had some kind of even hand involvement on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I hope over the years they've made it easier for him to maneuver in it, at least. Like, hopefully there's been better ways for him to not just trip over everything.
And he's not pulling R2 with his foot.
Poor man, yeah.
Because that's how they got through the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Poor Anthony Daniels there was an invisible wire attached to his foot from R2, and he was the one who was pulling him. For the stuff in the sand, at least.
I would love to be like in his head at that moment, thinking, "What is this movie that I am obligated to do this? To be in the suit where I can barely stand up and walk, and I have to pull this stupid trash can robot? This isn't going to go anywhere. What a waste of my time."
Well, that's what they all thought, because they've all said we were sitting around set going, "What? Who is going to watch this crap?" And little did they know, but. Yeah, I thought maybe if he wasn't going to be in the suit for C-3PO, like what they did in Phantom Menace, like he was wearing the black and he was manipulating as a puppet, like it was his movement. It was like attached to his body. So I thought, well, maybe if he doesn't quite fit the armor anymore, that's what they'll do. But I think I heard him say he's in it. He's in the armor, so he's in the suit, so... He's a very small man.
He did wear the suit a little bit, though.
He did. Not in Phantom Menace, but in the
I'm sorry.
Because Phantom Menace, he was see-through.
You did say Phantom Menace. For some reason, I registered Revenge of the Sith.
It's okay.
It's like, no, I thought he was in the suit for Revenge of the Sith. Okay.
No,
my mistake.
Once he wasn't naked anymore.
Right, exactly.
He was in it. But I thought it was very clever the way he was, because his movements are so distinctive. That they had him be the puppeteer for C-3PO.
I think we can go ahead and close this thing out. Unless you guys have anything else you'd like to mention.
Any other tangents we want to go?
I really like pudding.
Yeah.
Did we discuss this? No,
pudding
I actually don't like pudding.
But screw tapioca.
Okay, so where can people find you, Joe?
I am on DeviantArt. You can look at my most recent work, because DeviantArt is the thing I update the most, even though I have a website, I haven't touched it in a very long time. So the thing, if you want to check out my latest work, or at least the latest work that I can share at the moment, it's joehoganart.deviantart.com/gallery. I'm on Facebook, but I have no idea what my address is. I'll tell you in 2 seconds as soon as I go to it. Facebook.com/joehoganart, easy enough. If you want to friend me, I always post new artwork on there and updates to stuff that I'm working on that I can show on Facebook as often as I can. And yeah, I'm open for commissions. I can do digital, traditional, whatever you want from me. If you're into my style, we can figure something out, and I'd be more than happy to do that. And also, I mean, I probably shouldn't open my mouth about this yet because really nothing is set in stone. But yesterday I submitted 2 concepts to Lucasfilm for them to possibly select to be in the Celebration Anaheim Art Show. So there is a possibility.
Nice.
Yes, so there is a possibility that I will be in Artist Alley if they dig either one of my prints enough to select me. So that's been my long-term goal for a very long time. So
that's awesome.
Hopefully
you do that. I will definitely come buy something.
Oh, thank you.
Because I was Katie Cook at Celebration 6. I bought her all the official Celebration stuff. So and I love you both. So
I have a quick story about Katie Cook since we're wrapping.
Okay.
And not so much a story, but when I had mentioned earlier that I had posted stuff on theforce.net, and then they liked my stuff and asked me to do the banner, and this led to that, and all of a sudden I'm a professional artist from there. Katie Cook is the one that told me, post your stuff on forums.
Oh, awesome.
So she had no idea who I was. She probably still has no idea who I am, even though I've said hello to her a couple of times, and I've always thanked her for that piece of advice. But she is the one that told me to do that, and because of Katie Cook, I went and I did it, and then everything that's happened to me since then has happened.
That's awesome. She's the nicest lady.
She's a doll.
She's done some commissions for me, and now that I know you do commissions,
I do commissions.
I will be contacting you because I have ideas.
Excellent. And I enjoy eating, so I will be more than happy to take them on.
I also have a cookie business, so I can send you some cookies.
All right. Done. Your art for my art.
Yes,
that
exactly.
Like an even trade to me.
I agree.
So, Nikki, what about you? Where can you find you?
You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/Nikki Amy EIGHMY, my crazy last name. Mostly I am on Twitter at iHeartColson and also at Radio Free Endor because Jonathan and I both post on there. And you can also find us on Facebook. And agentcolsonsarmy.tumblr.com is the blog.
So I'm going to take a stab in the dark here.
I like it.
Have you seen, the Marvel movies and the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D.? Are you familiar with those?
Oh, yes. I'm slightly familiar, and
Good.
I've seen some of your Marvel stuff on your DeviantArt page.
There's a character you might like. His name is Agent Coulson. You might dig him.
I think I like him.
He's a great character, so it's well-founded love, I think.
Thank you.
And
Jonathan, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me at JEBell49er. I frequently tweet from there. It's the same with the Radio Free Endor Twitter. I also have my Geek Everything Tumblr that I post there all the time. So that's about it. So just kind of come to the Facebook page, post your thoughts and feelings about all the latest news. I try to be good and post it on.
Yeah.
Right after the news hits, or and then reviews on iTunes. I'm afraid I haven't really looked recently, but last time I checked there wasn't any. So just I don't know.
It's hard to get those because the other podcasts I do, we have trouble getting those.
Yeah, even some really well-known ones I know only have like 4 or 5. So I guess it's just one of those things.
If we were on YouTube, we get all sorts of comments, but no.
You guys.
Everybody comments on YouTube.
You guys suck.
YouTube can be a colorful place sometimes.
Yes, I got stories. All right. So I guess we can go ahead and close this out. So for Joe Hogan, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Nikki.
And thanks for listening.
If you would like to donate to help pay for this and other Southgate Media Group podcasts, simply go to our website, southgatemediagroup.com, and click on the donate button. It can be as little as $1 or, well, as much as you want. Help keep this fun going by supporting this and our other shows. Thanks again for listening, everyone. You're the best fans in the world.